and this video is just midpoints and distance formula. So kind of a short, quick video going through the formula stuff in case you missed it or need more help. Okay, so the midpoint formula is the average of the x's and the average of the y's. When you add two things up and divide by 2, it's the average. So pretty straightforward when you have 2 points. -1 plus -7 over 2 is the x-coordinate, and -5 plus 2 over 2 is the y-coordinate. And then just simplifying, so -1 plus -7 is -8. Do this on your calculator if you're not good at the integers. -8 divided by 2, -4. -5 plus 2 is -3. So -3 divided by 2, you could write that as -1.5 if you like decimals. Straightforward, 2 points, plug it in, go. Okay, I'm going to not write the formula this time. I'm going to draw this little picture here. So 8 plus 9 over 2 and -5 plus -5 over 2. Most common error is when there's two negatives, just an arithmetic error. So this is 17 halves, and this is -5. We verify if you want. If you had graph paper, you could plot that and verify to see if it looks like it's the midpoint. Okay, now we do have graph paper, and they're plotted. And so what I would suggest doing is see if you can find the midpoint by just looking at it. If I look at it right there, it looks like if I go up 1 and to the right 4 and go up 1 to the right 4, if I do the same counting twice, then it covers, that is the midpoint. So 0, -3 is my midpoint. If you're not sure and you want to use the formula, then you got to write these as coordinates. So -4, -4, and this would be 4, -2. And you need to take the midpoint of those, but I'm pretty sure on that one I can tell. You can add those if you don't believe me. Okay, now on this one, it's a little bit trickier. It's kind of right here in the middle. And so I think that's probably -2, positive 2.5 by looking at it, but I'm going to go ahead and put points in for the endpoint. So this point is -1, 5, and this point is -3, 0. 1, 2, 3, 0. And so just making sure to check my formula, so -3 plus -1 over 2 and 0 plus 5 over 2. That's -2 and that's 2.5. So it was right on the graph. Your answer, notice, is always in coordinate form. Okay, now the tricky ones are when you're trying to find the other endpoint when you have a midpoint. Okay, so I like to write these kind of thinking about if this is the point 5, -2, I know that's somewhere down in here. Go to the right 5, down 2. That's my midpoint. My original point is 6, 7, so it's up here. That means my answer is going to be down this way. It might be a negative answer. I can always plot it on this graph. That's why I gave you guys a graph paper. 5, -2 is my midpoint. 6, 7 is the original point. So yeah, it's going to come down this way. I might not be able to see it on my paper. It didn't make my angle very good over there. So to use a formula to do this problem, it's just straight substitution. So I know the midpoint. So here's the midpoint formula. I know the x-coordinate of the midpoint is 5. And then I write the y midpoint is -2. And then I can just substitute in. I know one x value. I know the x value here is 6. So I'm going to take out x2 and write 6. And I know the y value is 7. So I'm going to take out the y2 and write 7. Now I can just solve it. Multiply both sides by 2. And I get x plus 6 equals 10. I can do that in my head. 10 minus 6 is 4. So x-coordinate is 4. And then down here, multiply both sides by 2. y plus 7 equals negative 4. Subtract 7, y equals negative 11. It's actually down here off of my screen. And so your answer is 4, negative 11, but does it make sense? So if this is my midpoint, I went over 1 and up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So I go over 1 and down 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and I'd be at negative 11. So you can use your graph to count. You can make your own graph. Either way, these are the harder questions. So I'm just going to show this one algebraically, and you can use your graph paper for more if you want. So I'm going to plug right in. So this is the midpoint. So that's what I'm setting equal to. And so x plus negative 3 over 2 is negative 8, and x plus negative 9 over 2 is 6. Multiply by 2. Some people think they're going to get a shortcut and just say, like, multiply by 2, subtract this. I don't recommend it. Shortcuts are fine until you forget where they came from, and then you're lost. Plus 3, x equals negative 13. Multiply by 2, x plus negative 9 equals 12. So add 9, x equals 21. You wouldn't be able to graph this one to see it unless you got a bigger graph. But let's check. If I add negative 13 and negative 3, that's negative 16 divided by 2 is negative 8. If I add 21 and negative 9, that's 12 divided by 2 is 6. Since the midpoint is the average, you also can think about negative 3 is 5 bigger than negative 8. So this has to be 5 smaller than negative 8. If your brain thinks that way, that's a good way to look at it. Okay, distance formula. Straight plug in the numbers and go. Square root of x1 minus x2 squared plus y1 minus y2 squared. So the only thing I'm going to say is be careful. It doesn't matter which x goes first, but remember you're using parentheses here when you do this. This is a pretty easy one. 0 plus 1, square root of 1 is 1. That distance is 1. Well, if you think about it, this is the point 7, 3, and this is the point 7, 2. They're 1 apart. Okay, I picked this one because it's a lot of negatives, and I think people have trouble sometimes subtracting the negatives even though they have a calculator. So if you put this in your calculator exactly like it is, parenthesis, negative 2 minus negative 3. You can put a minus and a negative, and it will do that for you. Plus, parenthesis, negative 5 minus negative 2. Okay, keep the parenthesis with the squared, and you won't mess it up. So negative 2 plus 3, this is going to give you, that's going to be positive 1 squared. And this is going to be negative 3 squared. It doesn't matter. All you need to know is the net distance between those. The distance between negative 2 and negative 3 is 1. We're squaring that 1. The distance between 5 and 2 is 3. Because when you square stuff, it always becomes positive. So this is 1 plus 9. So it's the square root of 10, and then you can change it to a decimal. I think it's 3.2 when you hit the square root button. Okay? And do one more, just thinking about that net distance. If you want a little bit of a shortcut, don't tell your teachers you learned a shortcut. From negative 1 to negative 7, that's a distance of 6 if you think about a number line. So that's 6 squared. From 2 to negative 8 is a distance of 10, because you have to go from 2 to 0 and 0 to negative 8. That's a distance of 10. That's the shortcut method, and it comes from the fact that we're really just looking at a picture. Sometimes we forget that when we're doing this formula, plugging everything in all the time. So like this picture right here, I can count. For number 12, I can count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. That's the length. For this one, I like to think about this as a triangle. The net distance here is 1, So that's my 1 squared. And the net distance here is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1 squared plus 5 squared. If you don't want to do that method, then you need to write these points. That's the point 0, -2, and that's the point 5, -3, and take the distance. I would rather make a triangle and count. It's faster. It's the same thing that you're doing back here when you're looking at the net distance between those two. So this is from 4 to -5. So this is a good picture of what it looks like if the x-coordinate is -5 here and the x-coordinate is +4 here. That's a distance of 9. So 9 squared. And the x-coordinate here, or the y-coordinate here for this point is 4, and the y-coordinate here is -5. The net distance from 4 to -5 is 9. 9 squared plus 9 squared, take the square root, 12.7. So if you're in my class, additional things to look at, go to Canvas, watch the video review, that's this, check. Grade your paper using the key on Canvas. I'm about to show you the key here so you can check that. And then keep going back to that Quizlet terms practice. I'll add some more things as well. This is just what I had available right now. So these are the answers for the rest of the problems. If you don't understand, want to check, see me about that for more help.